How would society in 100 years look back at us? Were we the creators of FAT-TOPIA? Or were we the conquerors?
Hello, friends. Did you see a picture of a fat lady on the internet and then you felt angry and confused? Well, have I got the sort of movie just for you.
Connor Luke Simpson released a video called FAT-TOPIA on Amazon Prime. What Connor has done is make an extremely sloppy piece of propaganda against a group of people that are already widely misunderstood and disliked. He's also using fake footage that was bullying.
He made fake Audible ads.
We're just gonna have to call this, not true.
FAT-TOPIA. It's a movie, sort of.
2 years ago, I was in my final year at university, and I was feeling rather disenfranchised with the whole thing. I'd been there for 4 years and most of the work just revolved around writing essays looking at film through a postmodernist lens. Luckily, outside of the studies at university itself, I had discovered a love for documentary film and had a desire to start creating film instead of just writing about it. Although I was largely over university, there was one module I was actually looking forward to. We were all able to take our first ever practical production module that would revolve around documentary film. The module itself would revolve around a variety of assignments and tasks, but the main piece of work would be the creation of a 5-minute short. The only snag was that much of the class hadn't had any experience, so we would be shooting on iPhones. This wasn't exactly the task I was looking for. I was frustrated and I felt like I had something to prove. So I decided I would create the short documentary for my assignment. I kinda had to, otherwise I'd fail. But beyond that, I would go on to create a feature-length version of the initial piece. At the time, I was juggling around a few ideas as to what my documentary would focus on. What really helped to make my decision was this. The October 2018 issue of Cosmopolitan UK featured Tess Holliday, a plus-size US model who had also become a prominent figure in the world of body positivity. The cover itself caused so much discussion and debate, so I felt there was an interesting story to tell. Initially, the documentary was meant to just focus on plus-size models and body positivity. The working title for a while was Plus Size Britain. The film's direction changed dramatically on October 17th, 2018. I just met with a plus-size model in London and decided to share a memento on social media. This marked my introduction to the fat acceptance movement. I felt something interesting was happening, something that had largely been undocumented, and thus, FAT-TOPIA was born. Perhaps another day I will discuss everything that happened during the production of FAT-TOPIA, and perhaps I will go into detail about everything that happened after it. But this video is not for that. The release of FAT-TOPIA and its sequel, The Dark Side of Fat Acceptance, has made me some enemies. There has been numerous attempts to silence, discredit, and invalidate myself and my work, but nothing compares to this.
Oh yeah. Who's ready for some more wild nonsense?
Hello, friends. Did you see a picture of a fat lady on the internet and she looked happy and then you felt angry and confused?
I just want to pause the video here just so you can notice what she's doing here. She's speaking to us like we're idiots, right? Now, I don't know if people actually do get confused and angry when they see, a fat person online just enjoying themselves. But to try to frame that in this video as to how everybody who doesn't agree with fat acceptance completely or has criticisms about fat acceptance, to frame that as the argument as to how they feel just doesn't make sense. Because for me personally, I have no problem with fat people being online, enjoying their life, and I think they should be free from harassment and bullying. I think that's completely unfair, and people that do that are dicks, right? And she continues to do this throughout the video. There's a number of cases where she'll boil down the argument that I'm trying to make to the lowest common denominator, or she will completely create a straw man in order to not actually engage with the points that I'm putting forward, but instead create this fallacy of what I think.
I'm going to read you the description of FAT-TOPIA with some editing from Amazon Prime, which is where it is located. In an era of activism, some guy, Connor Luke Simpson, enters the world of fat acceptance, a provocative social movement that is seeking to change the negative perception of fat people.
But that's not what the synopsis says.
Is everything we know about fat people wrong? Or will this movement just become a footnote in the history books?
So she does this twice, and it seems like she thinks she can get away with it because she says up front that it's edited, but she doesn't give her viewers any context as to what was actually written in the synopsis. So she rewrites the line, "Is everything we know about obesity wrong?" to,
"Is everything we know about fat people wrong?"
Because it would then assume that I have all these negative assumptions about fat people. To say, "Is everything we know about fat people wrong?" is just plain wrong. It's bigoted. It's not something I would write. By changing the synopsis so early on your video, you're directly framing my argument in a way that makes me look like the bad guy, right? You're not properly engaging with the material that I'm putting forward, even if it's just a synopsis.
And that the target audience for it is definitely not fat activists. It is instead the fitness weirdo community.
I think what you're trying to do is invalidate the other side by just calling them weirdos. You don't want to engage in the point of view. It's obvious to see that, and to put everybody under that banner is just stupid, because there's hundreds of people on YouTube that make videos about fat acceptance, but are obviously not fitness channels either. So are they all fitness weirdos? I don't even go to the gym. Am I a fitness weirdo, or am I just someone that can see what's happening within fat acceptance and think it's pretty scary? That doesn't make me a fitness weirdo. It just means I can think critically about these things, and address them.
2.8 million deaths and 1 in every 13 deaths in Europe are also tied back through different papers to the amount of people who die every year from alcohol. And whether or not you consider those numbers to be good or not, it does raise the question, if Connor Luke Simpson is so concerned and his point of making FAT-TOPIA is that he saw these scary numbers and he's just so concerned about these death numbers, then why is it that he's decided to make this video called FAT-TOPIA specifically about fat activism and fat people, but he didn't make Beer-topia? Because you could take the same numbers and make them be about alcohol.
This is such a bad point. I've seen this loads of times. Loads of people said this to me when I released FAT-TOPIA, right? They were like, well, you obviously drink, you're an alcoholic, you obviously use drugs, why didn't you just make Beer-topia or Drug-topia? And it's like, there's hundreds and hundreds of issues and concerning things going on in the world. I could have made a film about all of them. But you know why I can't? Because I'm one person. I can only make one film at a time. Like, there's a ton of stuff that I'm really concerned about in the world that I'm not addressing, in documentaries, and perhaps I will in the future, perhaps I won't.
And yet we have this screams and wailing and rending of garments over one set of numbers and a complete lack of attention over another. Why would that be? Because it's a lot easier, based on existing social prejudices, to get people angry and upset about numbers that are supposed to be about fat people than it is to get people angry and upset about numbers that are supposed to be about alcohol usage.
Do you notice what she does there? It's a pretty interesting little trick, right? She tries to put alcohol and fat people on, the same stage, right? When in reality, it should be alcohol and obesity because they're the problems. And then it should be alcoholics and fat people, right? She does this a couple of times and she doesn't address the same issue. They are obviously different issues, but if you're going to do this, you need to make sure they match up and you need to do it correctly. And then if we're going to do that, if we're going to look at the prejudice towards fat people and alcoholics, and you're going to make the argument that there's no stigma or, hate towards alcoholics, that is a terrible, terrible point, because that's just not true. You don't think there's prejudice towards alcoholics, that is...
Making my way downtown, walking fast.
I love this song, so I've got to give it to her here. This was good. This is really cool.
I'm going to be using this photo of Nicolas Cage making a weird face to cover up the images of people who did not agree to be in FAT-TOPIA in the first place. I've tried to cut around images of people who did not agree to be in this video, but when I can't cut them out completely, Nick Cage. The only person that I really can't do that with is Tess Holliday.
I like this point because it actually looks like me and Ali have some common ground here. So in this film, I use a lot of public profiles from fat activists, and it's like examples of me just scrolling through, and I've always argued that I felt this is okay because it's me documenting a real experience and engaging in the world. So what we're really looking at here is an argument around fair use, right? Who should be included? Now, Ali obviously agrees with the fair use argument at a certain level. So I guess from Ali's point of view, she would argue that because Tess Holliday is a celebrity, she's fair game. And I've always argued that there's a certain level of social benefit to allowing documentarians and maybe even YouTubers do this sort of thing. Because, you know, if you start limiting who can be included, who can't, you're not going to be able to tell the stories that you want to tell.
If Connor Luke Simpson wants to be the rational king of Turd Mountain, like, fine.
I am transcending rationality. I am one with everything. I am one with the turd.
One of the big framing issues that Connor brings to how he has put together FAT-TOPIA is his contention that no one in fat activism would talk to him, that no one in fat acceptance or body positive, it was just a bunch of super unreasonable, mean meanies who shut him out, and he was just trying to make a movie. So sad. How could they do this to him, the rational, reasonable man? But here's the thing, people did talk to him because they're in his movie. There are people in his movie who talk to him. So I find that kind of wild.
Initially in the original cut of the movie, I think there was actually some text that read how many people I contacted and how many people said no, and then the most common reasons for not agreeing to speak with me. I mean, this was in the hundreds. It was crazy. There was a small pocket of individuals that did, but like I said, in the initial cut, there was these statistics from FAT-TOPIA and from my journey that showed that there was so many people that just didn't want to engage. And the most common reasons were, of course, my weight, my race, and my gender. So I wasn't sad or moping or crying like she puts out that people weren't talking to me. I thought it was disappointing that we can't even have a conversation about these sort of things because, you know, there's all these assumptions made about me, and that's why they don't want to engage with me. And before you say, Ali, no, I'm not crying about it, it's okay. I just think it's disappointing that we've got to this part where we're identifying so much on assumptions and the groups that people apparently align with that we can't even have, you know, a conversation about these things. That has been my main point.
Oh, I can show you exactly why people didn't want to talk to him. In this clip, Connor is speaking to a girl named Felicia. He has photographs of her as a fat child after she's told him that she was relentlessly bullied for her size. And then he takes that and does this.
Before this scene continues, I just want to give you a little bit of context because Ali cuts this in a way that doesn't truly reveal what's going on here. But like I said, watch FAT-TOPIA if you want to see the full context. I'm talking to Felicia about the word fat, and Felicia is trying to put forth the case that we should redefine the word fat itself and make it into a positive, because Felicia personally thinks that, you know, it's not a bad word and that there should be no negative stereotypes attached to the word. The narration that you'll now hear continues on from that point.
Is not a bad thing. Like, that's one thing that we really stand for is it's just another word. It's just another descriptor. Just like I would say you're thin. It's not negative. It's just a description word. And so I hate that people are making it a negative thing and using it in a negative way, because we need to take back the word. So I guess for that word, honestly, I guess to answer your question, my end goal would be for the word fat to not be used negatively.
It was a common argument made by fat activists, and I could understand why someone like Felicia, who suffered years of bullying, would have a strong desire to redefine a word that had tortured her for so long. Were there negative stereotypes attached to the word? Sure. But surely there must be more to it than that. I mean, why else was it a negative word? I got it. Fat can kill you. I think this is interesting because firstly, it was a different part of the conversation. I didn't use this when we were talking about her personal story, and I sympathise with her personal story a lot, and I could understand why someone who has been bullied for being fat would want to reclaim the word. The point I was trying to make here was from the fact that Felicia was saying that there was nothing wrong with being fat, it could be a positive word, and I was trying to argue, well, maybe that's not the case, because there are a lot of negative things that come with being fat.
What do you think that just was? What was that? That was bullying. You bullied her. It's cruel, it's cheap, it's lazy, and the thing is, Connor seemed like, to me, just from the interactions that I had with him and looking him up a little bit online, he seemed like the kind of guy who would do this.
I also want to preface this by saying that Felicia liked the movie. She didn't have a problem with it. She watched the film with her family, she enjoyed it, and she even apologised for the hate that I was getting from fat activists. But in all honesty, you know what? I probably would take the music out now. Fat can kill you. I think it's a little bit too over the top. I don't think it's bullying at all. I don't think that's correct. But I think what I was trying to do in this film a lot of the time was trying to manage the tone by using humour to sort of make this a little bit lighter and a little bit more digestible and easier to get through. And in some parts it worked, in other parts it didn't, you know. I don't really think it did a lot to help the point that I was trying to get across. But to say it was bullying, I just don't think that's true at all.
Are you serious? He literally filmed himself asking this girl a question and then rolling his eyes at the answer, and then he put that in the movie.
My jaw dropped when I saw this. I was like, seriously? That was not an eye roll. And you slowed it down just to make it look like it might have been, but it wasn't. And you were trying to be deceptive to make it look like that. It just... this girl...
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Sex, drugs, and...
This next part is almost unbelievable. Connor was apparently astonished that Tess Holliday didn't get back in touch with him about his janky video after he emailed her. Buddy, you know Tess Holliday is famous, right? She's famous.
You know Tess Holliday is famous, right? You know she is a celebrity.
Did you really think that a famous model who is busy working and having a life? Buddy, you know Tess Holliday is famous, right? She's famous. Did you really think that a famous model, who is busy working, and having a life, was going to pause all that to get on Skype with some random guy?
No, that's not nice.
Connor, she's famous. Don't you see? She's famous.
And you know what the most beautiful part about this whole scene is? That Ali knows that Tess Holliday did message me because she includes a clip where I am talking about it. You know, I reached out to Tess Holliday as soon as I could, and I said to Tess Holliday, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the cover. And when did I hear back? After I released the trailer. And when did I hear back? After I released the trailer.
Don't make stuff up.
She takes this clip where I was talking about the fact that Tess Holliday messaged me, but she doesn't include that bit. She includes a different bit.
Don't make stuff up.
This is such... she's just lying in this part. It's wild.
Don't make stuff up. What the hell? You don't seem to understand how bad that makes you look.
Because that's what editing is. Choosing what to leave in and choosing what to take out and making a purposeful decision. Famous.
You will not take it from me! Your anger and your lust for power have already done that. You have allowed this
social justice
to twist your mind until now you have become the very thing you swore to destroy.
Don't lecture me, O'Connor.
I see through the lies of the
fitness weirdos.
I do not fear
obesity
as you do. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new
Twitter feed.
Your new
Twitter feed?
Don't make me
tweet about you, Ali.
My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Only a
Radical activist.
deals in absolutes. I will do what I must. You will try.
You want those finer things and confirmation.
He's also using fake footage that he staged without making it clear within the video that the footage isn't real. Using a consistent visual language to indicate that footage in a documentary is intended to be a reenactment and was not filmed while it was happening is a thing Connor could have done really easily. There's a bunch of ways to do that. Here's some examples. Use a text indicator. Add a special border that you don't use with other footage. Change the color of the reenactment footage to not be the same color as the rest of your footage. And I'm sure there's a bunch more. Connor doesn't use any of these techniques.
This bit here was so confusing, and when I was watching this video and it was leading up to this, I was like, what is she talking about? But I want to let this part of her video play out a little bit, because it was just too good. It was the Ratatouille meme. It was just like, are you serious? This is brilliant. But please, enjoy this bit.
The date is June 4th, 1967, and boy do I have news for you.
This is really her example of me using fake footage.
Connor doesn't use any of these techniques.
Now, if you remember, what were the 3 ways that Ali said we could indicate to our audience that we were using recreation footage?
Use a text indicator. Add a special border that you don't use with other footage. Change the color of the reenactment footage to not be the same color as the rest of your footage. Connor doesn't use any of these techniques.
I did 2 out of the 3 things that you wanted me to do. What more do you want from me? I couldn't believe that this was really her point of me using fake or deceptive footage. It was crazy, and people are buying this.
Since we're talking about fake footage, I'm just gonna go ahead and put these here. So here, Connor cosplays being on the radio. As far as I can tell, Connor has not been on the radio, because if he had been on the radio, there should be some kind of promo somewhere that you could find for this radio appearance, which does not exist. So Connor's pretending to be on the radio.
I was on the radio, Ali. It was a studio at the university where I used to do podcasts, and it's available online. You can see videos of me doing podcast in this room. You can see on my Instagram, I even have a caption saying Podcast King, I think. It wasn't like I was trying to pretend I was on the radio. Like, this footage was widely available. You can see that I've done stuff in this room before.
Taking the weirdness up to another level, we have all these flyers that Connor had made of himself that he put up around wherever he lives. And pretended like, oh, so mean. These activists, tracked me down and got my picture. How could they do this to me?
Do you actually think that's what I was trying to portray with this? Because it's not. This was meant to be a representation of everything that Fat Activist was saying to me online, and I was printing it out and putting it in the real world to show you how crazy that would be if it did manifest in the real world. I was trying to put a spotlight on how people react digitally and how that compares to how it would work in the real world and how crazy that would be. I don't think anybody watched this scene and thought that Fat Activists actually did this. It was meant to be an artistic choice to represent that.
And then what? We bought a ticket to come over to England. And then what? We bought a ticket to come over to England. What I do know is that he has used a couple of news clips where I was able to find the unedited footage. And in these cases, he is using editing in a deceptive way. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I think is the worst example. From a 1978 60 Minutes report on a NAFA convention. Connor seems to especially like listening to fat people list negative stereotypes about ourselves and the ways that people think that we're bad, the specific ways. And I don't particularly love that, so I'm just going to clip that part out.
The fat acceptance movement looks to change anti-fat bias in social attitudes by eliminating and raising awareness of discrimination towards overweight and obese persons.
Most people in society do not like me because I am fat.
Within the past 2 months, I have been the unwilling participant of a verbal attack in public, once waiting for a bus on a street corner, another time on a bus with vicious language.
About
words,
what?
Pardon, about my size.
That if we could break some of the myths associated to being fat.
What myths?
What myths?
Yeah.
It's unhealthy.
Being a slob, being dirty, being dumb, being lazy, stupid. Thin people always have a good sense of humor. Fat people are jolly.
I thought this clip was actually quite powerful. I think these people were talking about, you know, their concerns, the ways they've been stereotyped, and I think it's awful that fat people have those stereotypes attached to them.
So if we take a look at what Connor decided to leave out when he edited down this 60 Minutes clip, it'll probably give us an idea of his intentions and framing. What is the purpose of FAT-TOPIA? I believe the editing can show us that. I'm just going to start with the Mike Wallace intro because it's classic and I like it.
I was looking for another job. I went to a representative on the Hill that had an opening as an aide. And I went there, I went for the job, I got back to the office, he called my boss. He said, Mr. Kelly, I really like Betty. She's got a wild sense of humor, she dresses well, I don't put fat girls in my office.
Then I spoke to that woman's daughter.
Would you hire someone like me?
You know, I'm asking myself this as I have my consciousness raised here today.
I can type 60 words a minute. I can take shorthand. I completed the course at the Washington School for Secretaries. I'm just as qualified as any other student there.
I'll bet you.
Weighing 100 pounds. Would you discriminate against me and hire another girl because I'm heavy?
That's a very good question.
And now clarity begins to descend upon us. And the reason why FAT-TOPIA exists becomes clear. Connor is invested in a narrative that frames fat activism as frivolous and worthless.
I know you're not going to believe this, Ali, but I actually didn't see that clip. I had to look through so many hours of archival footage and clips and videos and all this sort of stuff. There was just thousands of videos and I just didn't have time to watch all the videos completely. And like it said, it's a 60-minute clip. I wasn't trying to hide where this clip was from. If I wanted to do that, I could put a blurred watermark over that. I wouldn't have credited it. I put it in the credits of the film. I wasn't trying to hide. And in fact, I recommend people go watch the whole thing. The link is going to be down in the description below. And the clip that you use is actually a really good clip. And if I saw it, I would have used it. I don't know if you'll believe my word here, but I would have. I think this is an awful thing that happens to fat people, and I don't think they should be discriminated against in the workplace. And I think for most jobs, they should have an equal opportunity to get that job. And the fact that discrimination against employment exists for fat people is awful. But we also do have to have a conversation about if equality in employment across all workspaces is possible for fat people. For example, in a occupation such as a firefighter, a soldier, and this is not just fat people, I should say. I'm probably not in the physical condition to do either one of those jobs either. There would have to be a certain level of physical and mobility that I don't think you would be able to obtain from a fat person. You have to have people that are at their peak. I think there's going to be likely cases where equality is not possible in some work environments, but I totally agree. An office job or something like that, and if a fat person is capable of, doing the job better than a thin person, why shouldn't they get the job?
You don't give a damn about, you don't give a damn about, you don't give a damn about me.
So this is another one of her big points, right? This is one of the main ways she is marketing the video. She's telling people about the video. A lot of what this video is arguing is defined by this point right here. And it's great. It's great. And when I was watching it, I was like, where is she going with this?
One of the other main selling points that he had was that everyone called him a Nazi. It was so mean. It was so unfair, and it's not even true. Did that happen? Let's take a look and find out. Here's the thing about publicly making a claim that you've been slandered by being called a Nazi. People can check that.
I want you to notice that straight away, because that is not how you search for comments. You can't find comments on like Instagram and Facebook doing that. And she continues to make her point that she searched for these comments by doing things like this.
We're just gonna have to call this, not true. We're gonna give it 17 million Pinocchio noses.
And just to prove to you the way she's searching is not true, because some people might not understand how this works. Let me show you. So to show you that Ali's way of doing this doesn't work, we're here on my Instagram page and I'm going to show you. So if we were to click on my most recent post, so if we take something that I've said, we'll take the word here FAT-TOPIA, and we go up to the search bar just like Ali did and type in @RealConnorLuke, and we put in FAT-TOPIA as we know it was said in the post. Oh look, no results found. Right, well maybe we'll do the same with hashtags. I mean, Ali doesn't do this, but we'll see if it works that way, because hashtags are the way that, you know, we sort of connect with one another across social media and across different communities. So let's take the hashtag that I created, which is hashtag DTSOFA. So if we retype in @RealConnorLuke in the search bar, and we put in the hashtag the dark side of fat acceptance, which was seen in the post, oh look, no results found again. Yep, this method doesn't work.
We're just gonna have to call this, not true. We're gonna give it 17 million Pinocchio noses.
And I already messaged Ali and I told her if you had messaged me, I would have gave you this information. So here it is for everyone. There they are. It happened. I wasn't lying. I can't imagine I'll get an apology. She must have such a low opinion of me to think that I would lie about being called a Nazi. Like, can we just take a moment to remember what a Nazi is? Because it's being used far too liberally at the moment. Hi there, Connor from the future here. So I was just editing this video and I remembered that me and Ali had a bit of a discussion about her possible contribution to FAT-TOPIA. And I could kind of remember her saying something pretty hefty. So I went back and I looked at the conversation. Ali herself aligned cringe compilations with neo-Nazi communities. So to put together this part of your video assuming, well, it's just not possible that anybody in this community called him a Nazi, I'm like, seriously? You yourself warned me about this.
It's over!
Ali.
I have the high ground! You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
Oh my god!
So I say don't stop until we're spending money. Don't stop, we're gonna get lucky.
I am still like, but surely not. But surely yes. Hang on, I gotta go across the room to say this, because if I do it right here, I'm gonna blow my levels to hell. Oh my god! He made fake Audible ads! I started prepping to potentially make a video. Part of that prep work was to listen to Connor's adjacent media, especially the stuff that's promoting FAT-TOPIA. And then I'm listening along and I hear him go into an ad for Audible. And I think to myself, wow, that's strange. I didn't know that Connor had enough of an audience to have attracted a sponsor like Audible.
See, this was the first bit that was confusing to me, because anybody can get sponsored by Audible.
You've likely seen or heard YouTubers, podcasters, bloggers, or influencers say something along the lines of, go to audible.com/whatever my channel name is and start a 30-day free trial on Audible, which will give you 1 free credit which you can spend on any audiobook you want in their immense library. Audible doesn't pay people to say their names in their videos unless you're a huge creator with a special brand deal with them, but that's very unlikely. But as an affiliate program, Audible pays people when they refer people to their service, because anyone and their moms can go and apply to join the program.
Like, most people that do this and make internet content know this. I mean, a simple Google search alone would tell you about this.
Connor is LARPing being an influencer. He's putting on an influencer costume that he got at the bootleg Halloween store. And he's like, yep, I'm an influencer. Here's my Audible ad.
I mean, that is a hell of a leap. I think the word influencer is super cringy, but when I think of an influencer, I don't think of a guy talking about Star Wars and fat acceptance.
Pretend that we believe that it could be a mistake. Definitely there is not any kind of audible linkage in the YouTube notes that go with this particular podcast.
So this information isn't public, so I can't discredit Ali for not knowing this. I can criticise her jumping to conclusions, but not about her not knowing this. So when I was recording the first episode of the podcast, I'd set up an account with Awin, which allows you to find sponsors for your digital content. I kind of assumed that everything would be ready to go by the time the podcast was released. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and I didn't have time to re-edit and re-release the podcast, removing Audible as a sponsor. So I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, why wasn't your Audible link ready to go? And the answer is, I'm an idiot, and I provided them with the wrong URL. But Ali, you'll be happy to hear I have corrected this error, and that is why today's video is brought to you by Audible. Audible hosts the world's largest selection of audiobooks and podcasts. The app gives you the ability to download and listen to the world's best storytelling. I love that Audible is able to transform everyday life's monotonous tasks. Whether you're washing up, doing homework, cleaning or exercising, you can put on an audiobook and completely transform these moments. And the best thing is, if you click on the link in the description, you can sign up to Audible with a free 30-day trial, meaning if you cancel after the 30 days, and why would you want to, you get to keep your audiobooks. Yes, that's right, they are yours even if you cancel. Again, check out the link in the description to sign up to Audible and help support videos like this on my channel.
That's not what most people are thinking of when they talk about sponsorship as a indicator of, let's say, influencer relevance.
You're the only one that seems to care about influencer relevance. I mean, your whole shebang about Tess Holliday and...
Buddy, you know Tess Holliday is famous.
Kind of shows that you might be a little bit more wrapped up in this.
I keep trying to lock this, but I found another made-up thing today. Connor said he was getting sued because his video got taken down.
So if you look at this image here, it indicates that she did watch all of this video. So she understands what's going on. But what she doesn't reveal to you is that video was like a year old.
He never got sued and his video is back up. The original video that he was scream crying about. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So she has no knowledge of what was happening behind the scenes. She's just going from that. And you know what the brilliant thing is? I'm able to show you some of the legal threats that we got during that time. Of course, I have to redact and hide some of the information. Here is some of that information. And once again, Ali, if you were to have just messaged me, I would have provided you with this. Oh look, a new PewDiePie video. Who is not straight? But wait, PewDiePie is pointing to himself. Well, I'm not going to watch the video, that's all the information I need. PewDiePie is gay, 100% confirmed.
If you take a look at the original upload of the FAT-TOPIA trailer, which is back up, which is where I got this information from, you can see there's quite a bit of difference between this and the view count of the FAT-TOPIA trailer that was re-uploaded. After the, oh no, they're suing me, I'm gonna get sued.
I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because someone filed an unwarranted DMCA takedown and the video was taken down, so I had to re-upload a new video and everybody was watching that one. So once the other video was re-uploaded, it didn't have as many views. Is she doing this intentionally or not? I have no idea. It's like comedy at this point.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would
debunk FAT-TOPIA. Legitimize it.
bring balance to the
Debate.
Not leave it in darkness!
Listen up, you're just another one of us. Free.
Let's just start at the beginning. I've heard that's a good place to start. As we get into the interview proper, the first thing that we see is a DM or direct message conversation that Connor is supposedly having with this fat activist. This didn't stand out to me at first. Also, it goes by so fast that it's kind of hard to tell really what's happening. but upon repeated viewings, what I noticed is, so Connor managed to screen cap a direct message conversation while it was happening. And you can see that because 3 dots are there that indicate that somebody's typing. He was able to get a screen capture of a conversation while it was happening. So he's having this very long conversation with someone, and he manages to snag it open and capture the conversation as it is occurring.
Oh my god. This is such just a very normal technique that is used in documentary films. Let's take, for example, something pretty relevant, pretty new. Don't fuck with cats.
The internet is boundless. There's the happy places, and then there's another part of the internet.
So a lot of the film is constructed using social media images and texting and typing and things like that. Do you think when they were creating that film, they snagged everything as it was happening? No, it was impossible to do that. It's called B-roll. You go back and you use it as a way to formulate and tell your story. I don't think anybody assumed it was the conversation as it was happening. It was accurate to the exact language we were using to each other, but it was just recreated so we could help tell the story.
There's an episode of Connor's podcast where he indicates that he was talking to this person for a long period of time.
But in terms of the conversation before, I think we spoke for about 3 months.
So I just want to clarify this because Ali probably makes a lot of assumptions based on that comment there. When I say we spoke for 3 months, I don't mean we spoke continuously for 3 months. There was obviously times where it was on and off. Perhaps one of us wouldn't message each other for a week. I think there might have been even more than a week at sometimes, and we would get back to each other. We were both busy doing other things. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. It wasn't a strict period of 3 months of straight talking. There was sort of gaps that filled that time.
If we slow the footage down right at the beginning of this part, we can see this hat. Oh my, look at the hat! And the strings on the hoodie. Hat, 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 hat.
I had no idea this was sort of a contentious issue. I thought this was a pretty standard technique that people use to help mask the identity of their contributors. I mean, we were taught about this at university when studying documentary films, so I didn't realise this was contentious. I just thought it was a frequent technique that you could use to offer some additional, safety and reassurance to your contributor that, they wouldn't be found out. And I think it's important to touch on why fat activists might want to choose to be anonymous, because as I continue to make more films in the world of fat acceptance, it seems to be a continuing issue that I see unfolding, that, if people who are part of the fat acceptance movement speak to people who are critics of the movement, or if they say anything critical themselves about the movement, they really do risk being ostracised from the community. So I think a lot of fat activists are aware of, the ramifications of doing something like this. So a lot of them do choose to talk off the record or to be anonymous.
In the interview call where the subject did not turn on the camera, we have a sense of place of Connor looking at a computer. What we see when we look at this interview is everything is shot very tight, very close. There's no sense of place. There's no way to tell where this is. The interview subject is against a very simple gray background. All the shots of Connor are very tight. You can kind of see a background outside of this gray backdrop, but it's fuzzy and it's impossible to tell what it is. So the question is, where is this happening? Where is this interview taking place? This interview could be set on the moon.
The scene that follows this gives you a pretty good indication to where this might be taking place. So if we look at FAT-TOPIA, right, so this is the scene which Ali sets out as the start of the anonymous interview, and she's correct in saying that, right? So we're setting up the scene, but if we were to rewind the scene for about 50 seconds, let's see where we end up. Doesn't look like the moon to me. Where would that be?
A background outside of this gray backdrop, but it's fuzzy and it's impossible to tell what it is.
And you know what's even funnier about this? She acts like, oh, it's impossible to tell where he is. He might be in the moon.
This interview could be set on the moon.
To infinity and beyond!
There's actually an establishing shot that shows you the room as well, so you get a pretty good indication as to where this scene is taking place.
Where is this happening? Where is this interview taking place? This interview could be set on the moon.
You know, it wasn't that we were trying to hide our location, you know, we reveal it in an establishing shot 50 seconds prior to the interview. So it's so if you really did look into this film as you said you did, you would have been able to see this.
Most of FAT-TOPIA is shot using natural light and a few lights to see the subjects in interiors. There are no other uses of lighting like this at all. 4 years of theater design, finally using it.
So Ali seems to indicate that I guess her 4 years at university or college in theatre design make her an expert in this, which is really an odd thing to say. I mean, I studied theatre for 4 years as well. I wouldn't classify myself as an expert. So you make the case that this is the only time that we use a lighting technique like this, which is true, and it's because it's the only time in the movie that lighting is called for in this kind of way. But to make the case that we don't use any other artificial lights throughout the rest of the film is not true. You know, I can show you countless times where lighting was used throughout the film. So although it might not be as prominent as it is in the anonymous interview scene, we certainly did use lighting throughout, maybe more in a discreet way.
So I've made a diagram. Yes, I did. Am I starting to lose it a little bit? Yes.
I do kind of wonder if Ali put so much stock into this scene because she knows that I just can't come forth with, you know, the release form and be like, hey, look, this is who it was, here's their details, go and ask them for yourself. She knows I can't do that, right? And she knows that there's a certain level where it's just going to be my word against hers. Moving forward, as she continues to make these wild accusations, I think I can provide enough evidence on top of the evidence I have provided throughout the rest of the video that will sort of give me a good case, and hopefully you'll be able to see in my favour that this was committed with good faith and it was true. It really happened.
To get the Dateline NBC footage anonymous interview that Connor really seemed to want.
I kind of think that's a weird little comment there, like to say, oh, he really wanted it. Like, I really wanted the interview with Dermeister, the guy that was making fat cringe compilations. I needed a lot of scenes in the film to really be able to tell the story.
Footage of the subject is stock still, never moves. Camera's definitely on a tripod. For Connor's side, what would the setups look like? We still need a gray backdrop because we see that in the background. We need some kind of lighting, a camera, but we also need someone to hold the camera because on Connor's side, the footage is all wibbly wobbly, wibble wibble wobble. He does not have this camera on a tripod. And there's no real reason not to have done that. It's kind of nonsensical to me. The difference between the tripod, no tripod, one camera, two camera has been driving me up a wall. Here's the bit that kind of got stuck in my brain like a splinter. Because tripods are really cheap. It is really easy to get a tripod. I have so many. Sometimes they send me tripods I don't even want with other stuff. So suddenly you can like swing two cameras, but you couldn't put down like $10 for a tripod? That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't.
So you know what the funny thing about this is? I actually have the footage to show you, which shows that we did actually try to do it on a tripod from a different angle, but I think it looks crap. So I think the shot that we ended up going with looks way better than the tripod shot. And this was just a decision that we made in the moment. And I said to James, the camera guy, I said, try going handheld with it, see what that looks like. He showed me the footage. I thought it looked a lot better. And I said, yeah, let's roll with that.
You have on the other side of this quote unquote conversation, it looks like the person holding the camera is doing the best that they can to hold it still. It's not like when people use handheld to put you in the moment and make you feel like you're there. This person is trying to hold this camera still and they're failing because a human being cannot hold a camera as still.
And the thing is, I actually really like this shot, and Ali has problems with it, but I think it looks really nice. I think the problem I have is with the other shot. I think this shot looks really ugly. I'm not a fan of it. I would probably do something different now if we had the chance, but yeah, there is some level that doesn't match between it because one is still and one is handheld. Perhaps it would have been better to do handheld on both, but in the moment, you know, I was planning for the interview, I had the questions down, we had a lot to get to. And I just thought in a moment, let's go handheld, let's try it like that. I saw the image, I thought it looked good, I just went with it.
Oh, and his side keeps going out of focus.
This is another thing that happens in documentaries all the time, you know, it's just the nature of the beast. You know, there's a certain element that things are going to look a little bit rougher, and I think that actually helps the aesthetic and the appeal of documentary in a way.
Whoever filmed the fat acceptance side and whoever filmed Connor's side could not have been the same person, because those people had completely different skill levels.
1 minute. One minute, please. You know what? Ali's right. I never thanked James. He did such a better job than everybody else on the set. James just has a different skill level to anybody else that recorded that scene. I really need to tell him this. Hi man, how you doing?
I'm pretty good.
So I just wanted to call you to say, you know, thank you for all of your work that you did on FAT-TOPIA, and I really don't think I took the time to appreciate how much better you were than, you know, the other people that we had filming that anonymous interview scene. You know, you went above and beyond the Call of Duty. No, let me finish. I'm trying to tell you what I really think. You know, your quality, you were on a completely different level. You know, you really were, you know, the best cinematographer we had.
Was there someone else on the set who I didn't know about? Because I think I was the only person who did that.
Were you? Oh, but there was 2 different people with vastly different skill levels there. I'm almost certain of it.
Ugh. No, just one camera guy, just me.
Those people had completely different skill levels.
Yeah, two vastly different skill levels. I don't really know. Well, first of all, we had 2 cameras, but they were both very different. One was in 4K and high bit depth. The other one was just 1080p. So I wanted to have a consistent look to it. One was at an angle, was because there just wasn't enough room, and the lens was too tight. And so it was an 85mm. So not only would having 2 different cameras produce 2 different looks, to do the effect, it was just like having a light behind the activist and exposing for the light to produce a silhouette. So that was pretty easy. And then for you, we literally just put a light in front of you, which is what the thing on the left of the frame was. And that's what that was. And then behind it is, you know, the curtain. It was pretty easy, actually. It wasn't much different, really. So, like, it's just it's the thing with filmmaking is you have to deal with like complications and stuff like that. And the biggest complication for that was that the room was too small.
Well, I can't thank you enough for all your work. You've done fantastic, both of the Jameses.
Wait, does this mean I get paid twice because there's 2 of me?
No, you don't get paid at all. See ya.
The background that we see in Connor's shot could conceivably be the background from the interviewee side. There's no overlapping in these shots. They could have been filmed weeks apart. To me, these things were not done at the same time. They just could not have been. They probably weren't even done on the same day.
So when I got to this part of the video, I was a little concerned because a few weeks or months ago, I had deleted a lot of raw files from FAT-TOPIA, and this included a bunch of behind the scenes information. Now, obviously, if I presented that as my defense, it would sound like bullshit, right? So I thought, how the hell am I going to prove her wrong? So I started looking through my old SD cards, and it wasn't looking good. But then I found it. This SD card holds the unseen footage you previously saw in the video, photos of James setting up, and photos of him and the activist.
Hat?
More importantly, it shows that this interview was recorded at the same place on the same day.
These things were not done at the same time. They just could not have been. They probably weren't even done on the same day.
That scene, just quickly, that scene was... the way you saw it play out was pretty much we didn't do much edits other than cut between us.
And that is not true.
I just want to quickly note here, because this was just a quick point I was trying to make mid-conversation in like a 2.5 hour podcast where I was talking to someone who was critical of FAT-TOPIA. I was trying to make the point that this was largely representative of how the scene unfolded in real life. Now, of course, more work was done other than cuts, Ali, and you know that. I mean, you can watch about 5 seconds of the interview and notice 2 things immediately, and that is the audio on the anonymous interviewee
because you are not going to be able to tell the story.
And colour correction. But I just wanted to clarify that because I was trying to just make a quick point in the podcast to say, you know, this was quite natural and it was representative. But I just wanted to give you a little bit more context to actually what was happening. I was trying to say that the points, questions and answers were all playing out in a way that actually happened in real life.
In addition, Connor and the fat activist literally never once ever talk over each other.
You could watch a ton of interviews with people that you would imagine would be confrontational, but they allow for the other person to speak within the guise of the scene within the interview. I don't know if sort of the voice is misleading Ali here a little bit, because of the editing done on the voice to disguise it does sort of add a certain level of aggression and intensity. So maybe that sort of misguiding Ali a little bit here, but I'm not too sure.
Because this plays out like a play, performed by people who are bad at plays, there are these huge, brain-melting pauses that anyone with more experience would have cut out.
We don't need people like you telling our stories.
I hope you... This is super strange, and I just wanted to clip this for context, just to see how long that pause was. It was a second long. By that standard, any time in a documentary when someone pauses, it means it's fake.
And to the average person then the Democrats don't look like the people who are going to come to the rescue. Right. So in Flint...
Fake!
كمعدل لعدد الأشخاص اللي أنت قتلتهم.
على أيدي ما يقارب 6,000 قتلة.
Fake!
In the outside world, people tend to rub along, you know, different races get along more or less. And so how come inside it doesn't work like that?
So we don't mean, it's for no confusion, so we don't get confused.
Fake. Fake.
Sense. And then there's the use of the term naively salacious, which just wang, that is, wow, what a phrase.
I think you should just read into things a lot more and then you'll understand how naively salacious you are.
See, that I can actually agree with. I have no idea what that was meant to mean as well. I thought that was a really odd phrase. And then when I was showing the edit to people as well, a lot of us were sort of talking about how that was an odd term. So I can agree with that as well. I don't know what it's meant to mean.
Let me show you the points where Connor is obviously reading from a script that he has in his lap. Reading, up, and then back down to the lap to read the script. He hasn't quite got it, you know. This is the look of I'm reading, I'm trying to look up to make a point, but I don't quite have it, so I look back down.
And I'm not trying to hide the fact that I was using notes, you know, I wrote loads of questions beforehand. There's even a moment in this interview where I'm looking down for like 6 seconds straight. So if I was trying to hide the fact that I was using notes, you know, I would have got rid of something like that. But, I mean, I'd be pretty lost if I just went in blank, to be honest.
He didn't even do what you would do in a play, which is learn your lines. And if you're wondering, okay, maybe Connor's using notes. Maybe he's got notes here. In both of his other in-person interviews, Connor does not use notes. This is a script. He has a script in his lap.
Except for I did, and I've actually got a clip from the scene with Jocelyn, and you can see where my phone is. I had all the questions and points that I wanted to hit on within the Notes app, and I cut around it in the documentary so you don't see me go and return into the phone to find more notes of points that we need to hit on. But yeah, I definitely do use notes throughout those interviews, and even in the one with Lorna as well. There was a phone to the side of me and I would look down occasionally to get a note and scroll past it, but that was cut around. And it's like with that anonymous interview section, you don't actually see the notes, so I cut around it, but it's implied that there's notes there.
He did it the marketing way and not the smart way, which would have been a lot harder to prove that it was fake, but it is fake. Ta-da!
How would society in 100 years look back at us? Were we the creators of FAT-TOPIA? Or were we the conquerors?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you would end your movie with this. I gotta be honest.
I want every gun we have to fire on that man. Do it.
He made Fate audible.
That's enough.